I find myself in the Gagosian shop on Madison Avenue. That's okay, you can walk in.
I don't want to interrupt.
A lady carrying some of the fake bananas.
Oh, hello.
And here's Chris.
Here you go.
And they're bringing us a cup of soft drink. Nice, big, open, wide light gallery. That's Gretchen there, photographer.
It's a bulbous photographer.
Oh, nice. Where'd you get it?
Oh, a friend of mine made it.
Really good.
Yeah. It's a little bit long, as is.
No, but it's perfect.
Laboratory. I'm on the New Jersey Transit line heading out to Trenton. I'm actually going to Titusville, a little town on the Delaware River, not far from where George Washington crossed. I'm going to stay with my friend Caroline, my old friend Caroline.
We're leaving the train. Please watch the gap.
Well, my friend Caroline lives in this beautiful house on the River Delaware, just above where Washington crossed it many centuries ago. And it's very peaceful here, and been here a couple of days just lying around doing nothing in particular. I think I'll put Caroline on video a little bit later on. She's a writer. She's done a lot of books. She did a book called The Man Who Was Condé Nast, the guy that started that whole publishing empire. And I have stayed here before. We've been friends since the 60s. We met in California a long time ago. Anyway, so my trip this time, I decided to spend 10 days, couple of weeks in New York, because I hadn't been for so long, and there's a distinct possibility I may never come again. And my 15 Minutes of Fame was the library event the other night when I talked about incidents from Warhol's life and introduced other people from the book that I had had conversations with. I'll show you the book too. And a lot of people apparently couldn't get in. I've learned from emails since that a lot of people turned up too late, and the place was so crowded they couldn't get in. It was a good event. I don't want to be known the rest of my life merely as somebody who wrote a book about Andy Warhol, but at the moment that's very much in the news. And of course there's barely a day goes by when Andy isn't mentioned in the paper somewhere, and he's been dead 20 years. So he's definitely a big name and somebody who sort of defined an entire generation and a milieu. I'm not planning to do anything much else in New York except look up old friends. I went on the High Line, as you have probably already seen. I showed a bit of that. I'm going to go to the Oliver Stone movie tomorrow night along with my host Jarrell in New York. And otherwise I'm just going to take it easy. I may see the Macy's 4th of July parade, and on that day I return to California. Well, this is the view of the little balcony on which I'm sitting. Every now and then a boat makes its way up or down the river. It's very pretty, the Delaware. And we had a little lunch party yesterday. A few people, old friends of Caroline's, came over. House is very nice. A lot of people have their own little dock with a boat tethered to it. This is the house. And when Caroline comes back from a Pilates class, I'll put her on camera. Well, that's Chippy, and that's my friend Caroline, and we've known each other for heaven knows how many years. And you said that the water on the river, which appears so innocent, really comes very high.
It comes so high that we wouldn't be able to sit here. We'd be flooded. The water would be up to our knees, and it's been so far it's gone into my living room 18 inches twice.
Right.
So it's not good. It's a very funny river, and some people say it's because of the New York reservoirs that are kept too full up. And so whenever there's a huge rain, they overflow, and they overflow into the Delaware, and the Delaware gets
And
flooded.
is it after really heavy rains or a big snow melt or what?
Well, it varies. Mostly it's in the winter after a huge snow melt that happens too quickly.
Right.
And it's just pouring down, and then the river, it's very exciting when it starts getting high. This looks very like a mill pond now, but it sweeps incredibly fast down. The current is just
Right.
like a steam engine. And all in the water are logs and tree trunks and garbage that have been swept down. It's very scary. I mean, if you got in there, you'd be down in Maryland in about 5 seconds. So
Right.
that's when it's rising. And so mostly it's the winter, but in 2006, we had a flood in June. Nobody could understand it. There'd been some heavy rains, but didn't seem that heavy, so it was one of these mystery flash floods, but it
Right.
was very damaging, and all the poor people who just got finished from the last flood then were flooded again. So it's a tough thing.
And it barely seems to be moving, but I saw 3 fishermen in a boat yesterday, and they weren't doing anything. They were just floating down the stream, you know.
It's got a much more serious current than people think. I
Right.
have to tell you that every year there's a drowning.
Oh,
Every
really?
year. Some kids
Yeah.
go out and they don't wear their life jackets. There was one earlier this year. There's one every year, I just couldn't tell you, because they think it looks easy and they can't swim, but they don't worry about it.
Yeah,
And honestly,
yeah.
they drown. The current is too strong. They just get swept away.
Now, what book are you working on now, Caroline?
Well, I'm writing a biography of a woman called Anne Weaver Norton, and if anyone's been to West Palm Beach, they will see her very beautiful sculpture gardens. It's right next to the Norton Art Museum, and she was a fairly simple southern lady who wanted to be a sculptor, which in the middle of the last century was not easy. Very few women did sculpture. So she sort of plugged on, and then finally she ran out of money, and she took a job being a sculpture teacher in the Norton Museum Teachers Department.
Right.
And there she met Ralph Norton, who was the recently widowed founder of the museum.
Right.
Tons of money, came from Chicago, big businessman. He was 75 years old, or 73, and he fell in love with this little southern bird-like woman. She was 40, and she'd never been married, and they got married. It was the most whirlwind, wonderful thing, and all the Palm Beach ladies were furious because, of course, they had their eye on him.
Right.
They were furious that this little southern person from nowhere had snaffled him, so there's a lot of fury and bad blood. Anyway, she married him, very sweet. She didn't want any of his money. He kept saying, I'll give you some money and you can just work and do whatever you want. And she kept saying, she was completely the opposite of all the kind of rich widows who were looking for another fortune. So they had a very happy marriage for only 5 years, but then he left her enough money to build these great, extraordinary monolithic sculptures that are now in the sculpture garden.
Right. And what will the book be called?
It hasn't got a title.
And
I'm
when
very
will-
bad at titles. It'll be something like Small Woman, Big Dreams.
Right,
something
I
like
see.
that, because she was very tiny and her sculptures are like, big as Stonehenge.
Right.
They're very beautiful. I love them.
Okay, well that sounds beautiful. When will we see that book, by the way?
2 years from now.
Oh, okay. I'll be back before that.
Yes, not quite yet.
Okay, thank you, love.
Okay.
That's nice, yes. That's a lovely thing. Okay.